2017 may have been one of the best years in terms of gaming. You had the release of the Switch that came with Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Resident Evil 7, game I can't pronounce but I heard it was good, and so much more. Gamers that year received the finest of dinings, but a game series that kind of already had a loyal fan base years before released a prequel in the West that allowed basically anybody to get into the series with no basic knowledge. A series that I now think has one of the best prequels and entry points in video games is Yakuza, and I'm specifically talking about Yakuza 0. You guys have probably heard of the series before, whether it was from a Twitter gif of Kiryu naming his real estate manager Nugget, or the Dame Dane memes that came out during the dark times, or the many reviews of the game when it came out in 2017. Yakuza 0 released in the right place at the right time, and it had a lot of eyes on it. I didn't really hear about it till 2020, and the Dame Dane memes kinda repelled me away from it, but after stumbling across the most out of context moment, I just had to check out the series. And no better way than to play the prequel that got a lot of praise. I'll discuss the things that I like about Yakuza 0, but also give solutions to some of the problems other people have mentioned in the past. Let's get into it. The year is 1988, and Japan was in its bubble era, a time where the economy was booming, and the abundant yen had almost everybody spending it how you imagine. I'm talking clubs, gambling, you name it. Those who own land also gained great power at the time. But with the revitalization project coming, whoever owned this one piece of land called the empty lot could complete the project and gain massive profits. Although the 80s may have seemed glamorous at the time, that of course doesn't excuse the organized crime group known as the Yakuza, and you best believe they're hungry for this piece of land. Here is where the two characters you play as come in, Kazuma Kiryu and Goro Majima. Kiryu is a Yakuza member who is being framed for murder on this empty lot. And Majima is a former Yakuza member who's trying to pay off his debts and rejoin the Toho clan after being tortured and expelled. With these two characters, you see through the dirty lens of the Yakuza lifestyle and how it affects them. The amount of variety you have is what makes this game so special. Here you are presented with a very deep story along with the plethora of activities you can do, side stories that both feel so entertaining. Bowling, dancing, karaoke, go to an arcade, and so much more. This can however be both a good thing and a bad thing, which I'll discuss later, but it's the fact that you can go from such a gritty story to something so silly. It's not only realistic to today's world, but what gives it its very own charm. It'll have you on the edge of your seat in one moment and in tears in the next. This is the game I think everyone should play at least once. This, my friend, is Yakuza 0. As you can tell from the intro, the story is what you call a crime drama, and it has become the selling point for a lot of fans. It may be slow and boring to most people in the beginning, it was for me, I'm gonna be honest, but continue further and you'll start to see why people praise this game. Here you have a story all about a fight for property ownership, but later it shows that this plot goes farther and farther the more you go. The build-ups, plot twists, and cliffhangers are captivating to the point where almost after every chapter, you wonder what will happen next. Nobody likes a story where you can predict everything, and Yakuza 0 is the complete opposite. You question what others will do and why they want this piece of land. Whether it's for greed, pride, or power, some will go to extreme lengths and fight by any means for dominance. What deems good or bad isn't in your face in this game. However, the first problem is that it could be a bit too talky, especially in the beginning for most people. Even without cutscenes, there are these voiceless texts of dialogues that can feel tempting to skim through. I didn't really have too much of a problem with this, as adding the voice and personality of the characters didn't ruin the immersion, and it was still pretty fun. You can either do this in your head or out loud if you're new to JRPGs, but it's still important to pay attention to each dialogue and cutscenes. After you get through the beginning, the story becomes so encapsulating as you continue to dive further into this criminal underworld. I'll talk more on how good the story is later. Let's talk about the combat. Now at first glance, the combat looks weird and confusing, but as you learn the basics, it's not as complicated. It being different from other games is what makes it unique in a good way. Most games you have guns, swords, or powers, or all three. In this game you got powers too, alright. The power of these hands. Oh yeah, Yakuza is a brawler and there's nothing more satisfying than beating up an army of bad guys with mostly your fists. Now the combat mechanic relies on something called heat. Basically you have 3 bars and as you land punches and grabs, they fill up the gauges. When you reach the 2nd or 3rd bar, you move faster and you can use special moves called heat actions. These allow you to do more damage and sometimes use whatever is in the environment to do that in a cinematic way. As the story progresses, you learn more styles, allowing the constant switch and use of your environment. It's not too simple and it's not too complex where you need a training room. The more you fight, you find yourself getting better and better each time. Kiryu and Majima's are different, but it suits their characters, making the game not feel too repetitive. As you earn enough yen, you can buy new skills and combos to learn or use them to increase your health gauge. These are definitely important, so don't be afraid to spend a lot since Japan's in its bubble economy. Now the combat isn't exactly perfect, but it's the very uniqueness that makes it unforgettable. Now I love a good video game OST, and this game does not disappoint during the combat. It blends in with how it's meant to be played as, a beat 'em up. When you're taking on a whole building of enemies, you want background songs to complement it. It showcases the adrenaline during each action sequence, adding to the immersive experience. And when I mean whole buildings, just think of John Wick, but just your hands. Parrying a move or just going absolute chaotic on enemies, the OST just matches that energy, having me wanting to fight on and on. I can choose how brutal I want to be. Speaking of brutal, this man Kiryu is throwing a scooter at somebody. And Majima's a different topic. The only thing they kill is the dance floor. The antagonists have their own themes, but I think it's better for you to experience it yourself than for me to tell you. Trust me, you're gonna want to experience it for yourself. This game isn't all just fighting tracks though. Karaoke bars and clubs have these dance and pop songs that kind of lure you in to play them, perfectly syncing with the 80s atmosphere. Again, this game is all about variety, so expect to go from listening to something that makes you feel like you just took pre-workout, to singing your heart out in the car or make you feel like you're in an 80s disco club. Even the most obscure side activity had me like, who made this? Did they have rent due next week? Definitely don't sleep on those. Speaking of side activities, you know that one phrase that's like, the chances of this happening are low but never zero? Well, Yakuza brings that out along with the zero, with its absurd yet entertaining side stories. See what I did there? It is a requirement to play the side stories in Yakuza. The best way to describe them are like anime filler episodes that are extremely fun to watch. I'm pretty sure there's like 100 or more of them. From teaching a dominatrix how to berate people in a children's playground, to helping a public performer use the restroom by distracting the audience. There's absolutely no telling what you might encounter. The problem with this that I mentioned in the beginning is that although they can be entertaining, some have said it has distracted them from the story and thus said this game is all over the place. But you don't have to complete the side quests each time you encounter them. You can always come back. Other than occasionally participating in the side stuff, I waited to finish the story first, and to me it didn't feel all over the place when I did everything else after. This is once again just a suggestion. I am not a completionist when it comes to side stuff. I just don't know how people find it fun. But this game is so unpredictable that it intrigues you to want to complete even the smallest stuff to see what happens. Who knows, you can maybe unlock a chicken or maybe a 4th combat style. If you want an excellent story complemented with great gameplay, this game is a treat. To me, Yakuza 0 is a game that makes you feel jealous of people experiencing it for the first time. Playing it has felt like an incredible journey and I cannot wait to try out the other games in the future. Although the fanbase has increased in the West recently, I still feel like it deserves more popularity. I felt like it was able to connect to some of the characters in terms of facing the problems they had. And even though I'm not a Yakuza member, just seeing the characters I relate to evolve inspired me to do the same, and incorporate some of the traits or messages they had. Even the antagonists were written so well. You're not fighting aliens or some emotionless super soldier, but fictional people with their own motives and backgrounds that feel realistic when they express themselves. It's cliche for some random person to tell you to be tenacious or to keep getting up, but seeing a character personify that message and back it up with a badass theme song, oh my goodness. This game is like your 3-in-1 shampoo bottle in terms of variety. It knows when to balance between humor and seriousness, all while still having a fun time. And as I was playing this through Game Pass, I thought this game was at least worth $40. But get this, everything I just explained comes down to $20. Yeah, you heard right, the same price as an Overwatch skin bundle. Even when there's a sale, it goes down to $6. The same price as the 3-in-1 shampoo box. Alright, I've blabbered on long enough, but before I end this video, you want to know when to consider a game story art? It is when life starts to imitate it.
Mom! Yeah, that's right. That's right. Call for your mom.